This is Lake Erie, one of North America's 5 Great Lakes. The lake is a source of clean drinking water for tens of millions of people. Lake Erie also attracts tourists who can enjoy boating on its warm waters and sport fishing in its abundant depths. Many people visit its native islands. Lake Erie, the warmest of the 5 Great Lakes, is home to 130 different species of fish, and in total contains more fish than all the other Great Lakes combined. Lake Erie is divided into 3 basins: the Western Basin, the Central Basin, and the Eastern Basin. It reaches its deepest point at 210 feet in the Eastern Basin. The lake is also divided into 3 subaquatic zones. The littoral zone is just offshore, the pelagic zone is the open waters, and finally the benthic zone is near the lake floor. This underwater world is absolutely teeming with life. It is home to thousands of species intermingled in a complex food web. The Lake Erie food web begins with the sun, which shines down onto the producers of the ecosystem, the phytoplankton. The word phytoplankton comes from the Greek words for plant and drifter. These tiny plants float freely in the lake and give it a distinctive green color. In fact, a clear lake would likely indicate harmful pollution and a severe lack of nutrients. Like their larger plant cousins on land, these organisms use photosynthesis to produce their own food using energy from the sun. These diatoms are some of the smallest algae in the lake. This blue-green algae is actually single-celled cyanobacteria. These are the microorganisms responsible for Lake Erie's notorious algae blooms. These microcystins can produce toxins that are harmful to both fish and humans in large quantities. And finally, this is green algae, not to be confused with blue-green algae. Green algae is harmless, and some species form masses that cover pretty much any surface that is submerged in lake water. It is actually an important food source for young fish. Zooplankton are the first consumers of the Lake Erie food web, which means they cannot produce their own food like the phytoplankton. Instead, they feed on the phytoplankton or on each other. They are in fact microscopic animals, hence the name zooplankton. Other members of the zooplankton umbrella include the larval forms of zebra and quagga mussels. Zooplankton provide food for the macroinvertebrates as well as fish fry and other small fish. The macroinvertebrates of Lake Erie consist of mollusks and arthropods. The larvae of many insects, including mayflies, caddisflies, and various beetles, make up a large part of the macroinvertebrates group. Many of these insects lay their eggs in water, and their eggs hatch to become aquatic larvae like this one. Many of these aquatic larvae are an indicator of good lake water quality because they cannot tolerate pollution. There it goes. Zebra and quagga mussels, also known as drysinids, cover any hard surface in the lake that they can find, including the native mussels, which have become extremely rare. They feed by filtering tiny particles out of the water. Next up in the food chain are the forage fish. These fish feed on whatever they can find, whether it be mussels, insects, small fish, or juvenile fish. This is yellow bullhead, a member of the catfish family. The catfish family and the carp family are both benthivorous, which means their food is found in the benthic zone. Their mouths are designed to eat from the lake floor. They are angled downward and usually surrounded by barbels. There's one now. Carp should be distinguished from goldfish, which are a very harmful invasive species. The sunfish family is a common branch of freshwater fish. They are smaller, usually not larger than 12 inches long. Notice that their mouths are pointed outward, adapted to eat food from the open water. This is a pumpkin seed, a member of the sunfish family. The freshwater drum, also known as a sheep's head, makes a drumming sound that gives it its name. Although I was very surprised to find this big fish out in the open water close to shore, unfortunately I do not have a recording of it. These round gobies are invasive, but they have become an essential part of the ecosystem because they feed on the harmful zebra and quagga mussels, and have also become a source of food for other endangered species. These can be found in extremely shallow water, like here. They can be hard to spot at first, but they are everywhere, and they are also very skittish. Here are more of the zebra and quagga mussels that the round gobies eat. The yellow perch is one of the most common fish caught by fishermen, although it does not usually exceed 12 inches in length. Above it is a long-nosed gar, named for its long snout, which is filled with teeth. This sturgeon, which is actually one of the endangered species in Lake Erie, feeds on some aquatic plants as well as small insects. They can grow to over 6 feet long and live to be 150 years old. All of these fish primarily prey on insects, insect larvae, or smaller fish. However, there is a large number of fish species that are at the top of the food chain, and the majority of their diet is smaller fish. These are the piscivores. Piscivorous means fish-eating. One of the most well-known piscivorous fish is the walleye. Its large mouth and sharp teeth indicate its diet of other fish. Large and smallmouth bass are also fish eaters. Notice that in the largemouth bass, its jaw extends beyond its eye, while the jaw ends before the eye in the smallmouth bass. The smallmouth bass also has vertical stripes along its side, while the largemouth bass does not. This is a largemouth bass. Similar to the walleye, the northern pike has a wide mouth and sharp teeth for consuming not only fish, but also anything that fits into its mouth, such as frogs or even small ducks. Finally, the fish at the top of the food chain is the infamous sea lamprey, shown here in captivity at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. It uses the sharp teeth in its sucker mouth to burrow into the skin of all fish it can find and feed on their blood. Historically, it was one of the most dangerous and harmful invasive species brought to the Great Lakes. Now we've seen all the different levels of the Lake Erie food web: the phytoplankton, the zooplankton, the macroinvertebrates, the forage fish, and the piscivores. We are the caretakers of the earth. It is important that we are informed about the organisms that live in Lake Erie. These organisms thrive in a finely tuned environment, and human activity has had a large impact on the health of Lake Erie and the Great Lakes of North America. Information and research are the first steps toward the protection and restoration of one of our most vital resources, our lake.